How many years have you been in Ghana so far?
I came in 2008, so this is 16 years now.
16 years now.
Yeah.
And how is Ghana treating you?
Oh, Ghana is cool. What I enjoy about Ghana is there's black people all around.
Okay.
I enjoy raising my children here and not having to worry about. There was a young boy named Tamir Rice who was playing with a little toy gun, and the police rolled up and shot him dead in the snakes. Right.
Wow.
And this type of thing happens all the time. A little girl named Ayana Jones, who was, I believe she was in her grandmother's house, and they came in guns blazing and shot the little child. This is the type of thing that happens all the time to black people, but you only are just starting to hear about it on so-called social media, call it cesspool media. But if you read a book called We Charge Genocide, this was somewhere in 1951. Because in 1948, the United Nations came out with a comprehensive definition of genocide. And part one was killing members of the group. Two was causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. Third was bringing about conditions to destroy the group in whole or in part. The fourth was preventing births within the group. And then the fifth was forcibly transferring the children of a group to another group. So those are the 5 things. And black people qualified for all 5. Killing members of the group, serious bodily and mental harm. So what they did is they combed the newspapers for day after day, every single day that a black person would be killed or would be lynched or a black woman would be raped, and like all of these atrocities. It would read like a news feed that's scrolling 24/7. It's like an infinite scroll, but they actually culled it from newspapers all throughout the United States. St. Louis, on this day it happened. On this exact same day in Atlanta, this happened. On the same day in Wilmington, North Carolina, this happened. The day after, so like incident after incident. So if you look at Eric Garner, if you look at Oscar Grant, if you look at Amadou Diallo, if you look at all these people we hear, it's just digital now, but because we are disconnected from actually knowing anything, like I doubt any of yours will have read We Charge Genocide. I've read it from beginning to end by Nana William L. Patterson, as delivered by Paul Robeson. So, these are things that we've been dealing with. And if we actually know who our enemies are, why would we call ourselves any type of American? A blue American, red American, black American, African American. We're not any type of American. So an adjective on top of American is actually agreeing. Imagine I was born with the name Obadele, but I agreed to be named after Amerigo Vespucci, and a racist, killer, murderous, bloodthirsty Italian genocidal maniac. Why would I go along with being named after America?
What do you think, being in Ghana with a lot of people doesn't have, the authentic name and being named like with the Western names and all that? How do you feel about it? You being called, with Obadale, and you too, Obadale, and you are very proud about it. Do you see it's like it's a culture shock to you?
It was when I came for undergrad for that year, that academic year, because I came for 2 weeks, 98, 2 weeks, 99. But being here for a full year, it really let me know the state of affairs here. Because it's one thing to read about how our enemies have, quote unquote, underdeveloped Africa. It's another thing to live by it. It's another thing to have people with these white names and praying to an imaginary white boy. At the end of that academic year, I said I have to go back to the U.S. so I never have to see another American flag. Because where we are, we have the red, black, and green flag, which was the original flag, as outdoor by Nana Marcus Garvey in 1920. But when you come here, every taxi has an American flag or an Israeli flag or whatever. So I have to go back to the U.S. so I don't have to see another Bruni Chinchinga, that's the imaginary white boy on a stick. So, it was kind of like ironic, tongue-in-cheek, but literally, when I go back to the U.S., we're around black people with sense, so we don't have American flags flying. We don't have, an imaginary white boy who we're praying to. And the thing is, I don't even pray to real people, much less am I going to pray to an imaginary white person. So, that's a no-go.
How is Ghanaians comes to you? How do they treat you? How do they respond to you? How do they, feel yourself with the community? Do you feel like rejected? Do you feel like accepted?
Since I've been here 16 years, I've had the full spectrum of every type of Ghanaian that you can have a reaction from. Most will think I'm Rasta because they see Mpese, and they don't know that this is indigenous to the continent. They think it came from Jamaica. And I always give the analogy of it's like cocoa, which is from here. You take it out, process it in Switzerland, and it comes back, and you
Come
don't
back
realize
and
it.
then you.
So literally, the people left here with them pese with the locks. They were taken to places like Jamaica, and then when they came back, now you think, oh, this is something that comes from Jamaica. It means we don't know anything because you can actually find depictions on the walls in classical Kemet of black people who have locks. So it's much deeper than Bob Marley and ganja or whatever people think it's about. And as a matter of fact, it was a sign of the spiritual depth of someone. For example, Aldi Akomfor would have locks.
Okay.
So if you see a statue of Akomfor Noche, he's depicted with
Yeah,
locks.
that's true.
And it's not just amongst the Akan. If you go to Umzansi, what they call South Africa, the Sangoma among the Amazulu, they have locks. If you go to Yoruba, the land of the Yoruba, you have Dada, they have locks. If you go to classical Kemet, everywhere across the continent,
They have
someone who
locks.
is initiated or someone who has some type of deep spiritual connection has locks.
Locks, yeah.
And it was the same, when they came and kidnapped us away, that the Abosomfor, the Asofo, not the fake Asofo, who use the term now, but the real indigenous term Asofo, the Akomfo, they all had locks. And when they went over there, they maintained their locks, and that's where you get words like root man, because they used to be Odunsini, like the one who
Odunsini,
would, exactly, the ones who would prepare like the medicinal things and those types of things.
Wow. So you've never been bounced because of your hair before in Ghana?
No, so that's why I was saying it's the whole thing. So people who would say, oh, Rasta, now whatever they think about a Rasta, they'll apply to me, even though I have absolutely nothing to do with Rasta. What I'm doing is predating anything called Rasta, which is, a religion that's cobbled together from little bits of Christian sanity, little bits of Nana Marcus Garvey's teaching, little bits of just, whatever you can find. So what we're doing is actually much, much older and, much deeper than, the things that they're cobbling together in Jamaica and, the ganja and all the things.
I see most of the times you wear a lot of African stuff, like you have the handmade stuff, like when it comes to the necklace, when it comes to the clothing, when it comes to what you hold there.
I drive a kantanka, which isn't necessarily handcrafted in the way you would think of a staff being handcrafted.
Yeah.
I have a phone that's from Rwanda called the Mara phone, which isn't necessarily what you would think about when you think of handcrafted.
Wow.
This house is built out of mud brick. You could say, okay, that's handcrafted. But when you look at the structure, you're not looking at it like, oh, this is a handicraft structure. So you can have things that look, quote unquote, modern and so forth. But the main thing is that it's not everything that we make as black people, but whatever we make, it's our duty to support those things and to produce those things ourselves. So, producing this structure that you're sitting in right now. So it's ultimately what I refer to as race-first economics, which is not communism, it's not socialism, it's not capitalism. It's that I'm going to support other black people support me, so we can build enough black power to defeat our enemies. It's a very simple, economic philosophy. But because we don't practice that economic philosophy by and large, we end up doing lots of things that don't make any sense. Other people will support their own things, we'll support their things, and then we'll end up with roads that aren't paved and all these things that we complain about, doomsaw. But we don't realize that the clothes that we're wearing, not because we want to, but because we've been manipulated to wear those clothes, that's the reason why you have doomsaw. So you can't have it both ways. Either you wear the clothes made by white people, or you have, doomsaw. Choose one, right? Right, so if you're wearing those clothes made by white people, that's when you're going to get the doom. So if you start wearing clothes made by black people, if everybody in Ghana said we're never going to wear anything made by white people again, then there's no more doom. So
You've been in Ghana for 16 years, seeing the culture of Ghana, seeing the culture of Africa, let's be specific here in Ghana. Do you think we are losing our culture in such a way? Through education?
there's no education here. There's only miseducation here.
There's miseducation.
Miseducation, there's no education here. I wish there was, because if there was education, then things would already be different. But because there's only miseducation, that's where we end up getting the results that we get, which is where people know about Queen Victoria, so-called Queen Victoria, but they don't know about Sobek Neferura. If there was education, they would know about Sobek Neferura, the first female ruler of a nation state on the entire planet Earth.
Okay.
But why don't we know about it? Because there's no education system. Why don't they know about her? Because she's black. And because the ones who are teaching you are these non-blacks who are your enemies, so they'll never teach you about that. They'll teach you about Victoria. You'll know about Shakespeare, but you won't know about Imahu Ptahhotep, who's the author of the first book in the history of the world. Why don't you know it? Because there's no education system. If there was an education system, then that would be the first thing that you're taught. As soon as you learn ABC, you'll learn that even the letters, the Latin letters, are coming from the Greek letters, which is coming from Medu Neter, which was invented by your great-ancestors. But because there's no education system, you don't know any of those things. All you know is, if not for the brutish, I would be swinging from trees and we'd all be chimpanzees, which I've actually had a student tell me word for word, a Ghanaian. So if we're talking about if we're losing our culture, first we have to even understand what our culture is, because Ghanaian culture is very much in alignment with these Berlin Conference borders and the, let's say, Kolo mentality that comes along with it. But if we're understanding our culture as culture, the shared culture of black people that we can find in how we pour libation, for example, you understand? There's a certain worldview that comes from that, our understanding that nothing is created or destroyed, it's only transformed. That's the reason why we pour libation. It's the idea that the human being is a living sun. So we all have a sunrise and we have a sunset. That's our worldview. So that culture is still there to some degree. But by and large, the culture that we now accept as Ghanaian culture, if someone sees me wearing clothes made by black people, they think he must be coming from abroad. Because all Ghanaians wear clothes made by white people. So that's Ghanaian culture now.
Wow.
If you see someone speaking to their own child in their own language, it's like, what's going on? Because people see my children, those stars, or any child they see, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. They're trying their best to, sound like they're chewing on a coconut or something. Not just accent, but the fact that they're trying to speak English to the child, as opposed to speaking to the child in their own language, to the point that the child doesn't even know their mother's language. Not that they don't greet in the mother's language, they can't even identify the mother's language. I remember I was living at Hacho, and the mother was Ebe in this particular family. So I greeted the children, Indi Nami. They said, oh, we don't speak Chi. They can't even identify that this is their mother's language, you understand? So that's Ghanaian culture now, right? If you are doing any transaction, 10 CDs, 2 CDs, you don't say CD mienu, CD do, CD aduno, CD mienu nefa.
That one is true.
That one, everything I'm saying
is true.
It's not only that one, but that's to be a Ghanaian. It means that you're a cultural mulatto. It means that you have been subjected to cultural linguistic aids. So now it comes down to who infected you with that cultural linguistic aids. Because to extend the analogy, it means that your body, the immune system, has been beaten down to the point that anything can come in. This means they can bring the Obuniwa clothes and it comes in. There's no one who says this is unacceptable. Ours are of a higher standard. This woven cloth is of a higher standard than the cheap T-shirt that you get that you'll wear for one rainy season and it's torn, and now you have to go get another one from Medina Market. It's higher quality, but something has told you that your immune system needs to be lowered to the point that this T-shirt can come in and it can even suppress your own indigenous weaving industry, to the point that how many of us know how to weave our own clothes or wear clothes that are woven by our own people?
A lot of people doesn't really understand why we should hold our culture really firm and strong. Can you tell us some of the things that are very important for us to know that culture means a lot to us?
Yeah, your culture is your means of warfare. Your means of warfare. And you'll be like, well, what does culture have to do with warfare? It has to do that, if you are fighting an enemy, but you're dependent on that exact same enemy, how well do you think you will do in that battle? Meanwhile, what you'll do if you don't have your own culture is that you'll be enriching your enemy, or you'll even think that your culture is enriching your enemy. That's what Ghanaian culture is, as I've come to observe it. So if I go to University of Ghana, I could count on one hand and have fingers left over how many people are wearing clothes made by black people.
Wow.
These are the leaders of our nation state, our future leaders who will be ministers and MPs and presidents and everything else you can imagine. This is what they're doing. So now, what are they doing? They're enriching their enemies. And I always talk about the clothes because it's the easiest one. They're tailors and seamstresses all around. But now look at what's going on here.
Yeah.
It's like for special occasions, we can wear something made by black people, but all other 360 days of the year, let's enrich our enemies. How do you win the battle with that?
That's true.
But then they take that exact same money and then they use that to pave their roads. Are all the roads paved here in Ghana? Do you know that just the money from clothes from 1957 up to now could have paved every road in Ghana and could have had super highways bigger than anything in the Autobahn that you can imagine? Just the clothing money alone,
Just the clothing.
only that.
And then,
Before we go into the alcohol money, the gin, the schnapps, that
wow.
just the alcohol money is enough that we could have a space station, a Ghana space station. The money from just the alcohol alone, but that's why they do it. The creative tastes and desires, because what happens is if you don't have your own culture, Nana Marimba Ani says, is your immune system. So it means if you don't have your own culture, it means you don't have an immune system. It means anything can come in. This means English language can come in. That's why I call it cultural linguistic aids. The clothes can come in, the alcohol can come in, the baby powder can come in, which causes cancer. All of your users, they're putting baby powder all the time, but they don't know there's a $1 billion lawsuit that Johnson & Johnson is being sued because they've caused cancer to all of these people. They have to have their ovaries cut out and their uteruses cut out, and they have breast cancer and all these things, you understand? But they don't understand these are your enemies. So not only are, through our created tastes and desires that they've implanted into us to serve their own interests, not only are we enriching them, that again, we can see the deleterious effects all around us. Any of your listeners who complain about doomsday, is because of not having a culture, that they don't have an immune system. You understand? It's been broken down. Anyone who's complaining about any of the things that we complain about day to day, the exchange rate, is because you don't have an immune system.
Wow.
Any complaint that any Ghanaian has, and again, Nana Amos Wilson says, don't look at who suffers from the problem, look at who benefits from the problem. Then you can trace the money trail to the ones who created that problem in the first place. And all of those problems are created by the same non-black enemies.
Thank you so much for joining Epic Awards. It was so nice to be nice. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so they can find me on abibitumi.com, so you can download the app. Abibitumi.com is an exclusively black platform by black people for black people. Exclusively, if you're not black, please don't come on the platform. You can also find me on Abibitumi TV. This video, when it comes out, I'll put it on Abibitumi TV. For those who are interested in repatriating, we have repatriatetoghana.com. Also, the short URL, the letter R, the number 2, gh.com, and you can find us there. We're doing Black Powerful works to build up the land of black people in the interest of black power so that we can have black liberation, total black liberation from under white world terror domination, in the spirit of my great-grandsister father, Nana Kamal Kamban, and we have his documentary coming out. It's abibitumi.com/quiet warrior. You can go there and you can even be a producer and find your name in the credits as you support us with the editing, distribution, filming, and all of those good things. Abibitumi, Abibi Fahudia.
Black Power. All right, thank you.
All right.
All right. Peace.